Hello, everyone. Brian Burke, the editor of the Music and Sound Retailer magazine, and thank you for joining us once again. I have a special guest with us today, Landon McCoy. He's the CEO of Chaos Audio. Had a great NAMM show, Summer NAMM show recently, so I got to check out the booth a bit, and now we're back on Zoom, so to talk to him. So first, thanks for joining me. I mean, you got quite a story behind the company. So I want to, can you tell us a little bit about that first?
Yeah, honestly, we're here in Panama City Beach, Florida, and there's an FSU campus here. So for the longest time, my brother and I, we've been really interested in engineering, specifically electrical engineering for me. And so about 2 years ago, my brother bought his first guitar pedal. And this is when we were kind of in the early classes, the prerequisite courses. We knew we were interested in engineering, but we hadn't gotten there quite yet. But he bought his first guitar pedal. It was a Boss DS1, and we both thought it was the coolest thing. And from there, we're like, okay, so we've experimented with guitar. We've done things like Rocksmith to learn guitar, right? But let's take it up a notch and explore the world of pedals. And so I bought a Big Muff. That was my first pedal, and it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, oh, I'm gonna sound just like Smashing Pumpkins. And then we got to thinking, we're like, I wonder how these work. So we took a look at some schematics because, we're like, okay, well, this is already kind of the field that we're interested in. And we started tweaking some analog pedals. We started making our own analog pedals, just for fun, maybe copying some existing circuit schematics. And then we had the idea, we're like, okay, well, what if we took the idea of a multi-effects pedal, but made it similar to, Apple's App Store, where you can download a plethora of free effects, get them straight on the pedal, make it super portable, make it travel sized, and have a really easy to use app. And of course, that was a big endeavor at the time, but we started small with a little Arduino, and we made the app, in-house. It was only on Android, and that's when we started seeing some traction. We started seeing people were interested in a concept like this. So from there, we found Tech Farms. Tech Farms is an incubator here in Panama City, Florida, and the owner, his name is Steve Milloway. He actually is the founder of Gain Technologies. He designed the world's best op amp of 7 years, which I found interesting because, op amps are all over the place in analog pedals. And so we met with him a few times, and then that's when we struck an agreement for an investment. From there, we actually had the funding to see this through to really hammer out a solid app, some solid electronics design for the pedal. Obviously we had to do a lot of experimenting, but from then to now, it was just lots of trial and error, lots of tweaking. And of course, a successful Kickstarter campaign the previous month will help us bring this to mass production.
Oh, great. Well, congratulations. That's incredible. I mean, how old are you now?
I actually just turned 21 about 13 days ago.
Wow. Well, happy birthday. I hope you got to celebrate that one. So you're still at college? You're still studying, right?
We are. The whole team, actually. 4 of us are FSU current students. So we're students currently at FSU Panama City. And then one student or one member is a graduate, a computer engineering major. So we're all very interested in engineering, but we've had to diversify the roles a bit and also keep up with school classwork and such. It's been a little bit easier. Obviously COVID is not a good thing, but with online classes, at least it's a little bit more flexible. So.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. You're certainly maybe the youngest company to start in our industry, so at least in a very long time. So that's fantastic. And tell us a little more about the you got into the product a bit, but tell me a little more about it, the name of it, what makes it cool, and when it might be available for retail sale.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stratus is a multi-effects pedal that connects to our app. Our app is on Android and iOS, and the way that it works is this runs all of the effects. So you can chain up to 5 effects together in any order, and it's all controlled through the app. The app doesn't do the effects processing, so you have extremely low latency, but it acts as a very intuitive controller, so you can adjust the chain of your 5 effects, tweak the parameters just like you would an analog pedal, control the stop switches and whatnot, and then save and load your presets. It also has a looper, up to 5 minutes of recording time. It functions just like a traditional 1-button looper, and the knob actually has a switch. That's how you engage the looper. And then the stomp switch here is for the effects, obviously. Of course, we may add the ability for you to swap the functionality of those 2 switches in the app in the future. And then it also has a tuner built in as well, and that's in the app and in the light strip on the top here. So this is a fully addressable RGB light strip. And this is used for telling you when your effects chain is on or off, telling you what the looper state is in, so recording, playback, or overdubbing, as well as for the tuner. There'll be a little LED dot that gets red as it approaches the edges. And then as it gets closer to the center, it turns orange and then green as it's detecting which string you're tuning.
Okay, great, great. One thing I wanted to also bring up to you is how cool and hip your website is, especially your where you talk about yourselves. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, if anyone wants to check it out, it's at chaosaudio.com, and I want to get your take on it. I think it describes you as someone who drinks, what, 2 or 3 energy drinks a day. You speak 500 words per minute. You're the smartest person in the company, and there are a couple more details like that. What was behind that thought process? I mean that's
okay. I want to
pretty
point out,
cool way to go about it.
I did not write that. we had, so basically we have we're a pretty close team, right? We work together all the time. So the idea was, hey, let's get the 4 members of the team to write a bio for the one person that's in another room. Let's just write the bio for them and follow the same style for everyone. We need to update it. There's a couple people missing on the about page, just because it's not a good habit, but we haven't been keeping the website entirely up to date because we've been focused on the Kickstarter page and the Indiegogo page. Yeah, it's I know, I feel like I'm talking fast right now. I'm trying to slow down, but it was just something goofy and fun that we're trying to do, because at the end of the day, we want to make a solid, high quality product, but we also don't want to emulate, a large company. I feel like you don't see very many small companies doing multi-effects, but we want to do it in the way that a lot of boutique pedal makers might handle it, right? And have some fun with it. Have some fun on social media, have some fun on the website, and just really enjoy the process, because at the end of the day, it's a learning experience for everyone.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, it's really cool. People should check it out. Great. Let's talk more about the company and business. It's obviously it's got to be difficult starting a business when you're that young. I mean, can you tell me lessons you've learned, and also about the business itself? I mean, there's some tremendous companies in pedals in our industry, but there's actually not a ton of them, and it hasn't been a lot of, I guess, change recently as far as the product is concerned. I mean, is that something you really looked at, and you were kind of saying, hey, we could really improve on something that hasn't had a ton of alterations over recent years?
Yeah, that's really what we're trying to do with Stratus. Is we know that there's a very consistent kind of structure to how multi-effects rigs are set up currently. We want to retain a lot of the traditional intuitive functionality of that. I mean, come on, you can't beat the pedal board aspect of having that control over every single effect, right? Being able to tweak it on the fly, reach down there, tweak the knob, and then boom, you still have complete control over your entire effects chain. We want to take that idea, but make it more accessible to beginner and intermediate guitarists, right? Because it can get pretty pricey. If you want a really nice multi-effects rig, if you want to purchase a bunch of different analog effects pedals, that cost can go up tremendously as you start collecting those pedals and building out your pedal board. So we don't want to replace the pedal board. We want to have essentially a Swiss Army knife pedal that complements a pedal board or acts really well on its own as a solid effects processor. But we want to give people access to a plethora of effects, expand that platform, work with other companies and artists to make some artist series effects and some emulations of effects on the market, and then make that more accessible to the end user, in a single analog pedal sized package.
Okay, great. What was your biggest challenge, other than money, to starting a business, and what lessons have you learned so far?
Oh man, it's been nothing but a learning experience. So when you're talking about how to handle management, like working together as a team, obviously you're going to have some issues in regards to being as effective as you can be as a team that gets things done in a timely manner, right? So we've had to learn how to work well together. We've had to learn how to manage our finances. Just recently, this component shortage has hit us hard as well. Not only are we learning how to handle mass manufacturing of a hardware product, but it's during one of the most pressing times of component sourcing, where if you don't get a component, these other companies are just buying out stock of all these components for in the future because they want to make sure that they're well protected. So we have to kind of go searching for okay, does this company have a Bluetooth module that matches the specs that we need? Do they have enough in stock? Is it within our budget? Can we fit it into the hardware? So we had to adapt really effectively in short periods of time, the design of the hardware and the software to be able to keep up with our goal for mass manufacturing. And right now we're still on track, but that's a really solid lesson that we've learned is, what's the best process to follow in regards to sourcing components and getting those in on time. And then anything from, how to handle financing. We've started having to scan our receipts. I mean, I know that's something small, right? But it just goes to show you, we're learning everything as we go. And now we're scanning our receipts and learning what we can write off, to make sure that we're, handling our revenue stream appropriately. But anyway, it's a lot to go over, but essentially this entire process has been a learning experience, and the most fun has been, okay, let's figure out how to design this hardware, let's figure out how to make the software, but not only that, let's figure out how to make it efficient enough for mass manufacturing. And that's the biggest lesson that we've learned and that we're currently learning.
Got it. What did you know about the music instrument industry before you came in? I mean, sure, it's you've had to learn about that as well, and you had an experience. I guess that was probably your first show experience, but you'd have to tell me. Give me some ideas there about what you found out about the industry and how that is for you.
So we found out that there's a lot of really great support in this industry, right? When you're trying to experiment with new things, that's why I like this market, is because it's a mix between engineering and art. It's essentially where, that's essentially what it is you're taking this aspect of, STEM, math, engineering, science, and you're meshing it with art. And that's why I love this industry, because you'll have people walk up to the booth and they'll blast off ideas, not only about like, oh, maybe you could try this with your design or try this with your app interface, but they'll also say things like, oh, if you could get this sound, I could experiment with, maybe this specific drive. You could remove some of the highs that you have in this drive and bring it down a bit, or maybe it's a little too dry. You want to, kind of make it a little bit, clean up the mix a little bit in that specific drive that you have. That's a specific example, but it's just interesting getting feedback from people as they walk up to the booth and try the pedal out for the first time, and also seeing how this interface compares with a lot of the other interfaces out there, right? For example, the Line 6 Helix is a large multi-effects processor. I mean, let's be real, it has a lot more hardware functions, right? But at the same time, it's also very expensive. So, one thing we've learned is there is absolutely a market niche for an affordable pedal that can handle a lot of the same processing, but isn't necessarily in the realm of the $1,000, $700 to $1,000 price tag. It's about the same price as a high-end analog pedal. So that's really the biggest lesson that we've learned in this industry, and to see support from everyone from the Kickstarter page and everyone who visited our booth at NAMM is very gratifying, and we appreciate it a lot. So
it's great to hear. And what was some of the the feedback that you received there, especially from retailers, if they were looking at it? I think that was the primary people who were at that show. So what did they say about the product? Did they give you any input, or
They definitely did. I feel like it's one of those products that, it's intriguing at first. You have to get some hands-on experience with it. But anytime somebody walked up and started using the app, they left with a positive experience. They did have some suggestions in regards to, how many effects we should try and have on our platform, like what's going to make it worth it to the end user, and kind of really more specifically our manufacturing price point and our wholesale price point. We've got to get that down pat. But most of the feedback we got from retailers was, this is a solid idea. It remains to be seen just how well it does in the market. But the one thing they suggested was, you've got to get this to market as fast as possible. So we're working with manufacturers to see that through. But I think they're absolutely right. We've got to figure out how to make this efficiently in large quantities, and we're getting there. So
good. Yeah, another thing I want to ask is, when you're in your field, it's people would think the pandemic would destroy an industry, and they'd say, how are you starting a new business? But in your case, I actually think it may not be, guitar and amp sales and accessory sales actually did really well during the pandemic. So, are you seeing that in your case? And it actually might be a boost to your business, and which is unusual to say, but it is actually might be true.
So we actually, right before the NAMM event, we went to the Gibson Garage event. that was hosted for the Gibson Gives charity. And the CEO of Gibson was there. And it's funny that you bring this up because he said the exact same thing. He said that what Gibson noticed was a heavy increase in guitar sales and an increase in new musicians. He said that's the most notable aspect of what they've seen in the market is new people entering this space that haven't been there before. And that's, you know, that's a huge boost to what we could expect now for our market niche, because that's really who we're targeting is the beginner and intermediate guitarists who maybe want something to experiment with initially, right? And then continue to add to their pedal board as they collect, you know, different effects and whatnot in the future. But I thought that was really interesting as well, because you don't really see that in the market. And I'll give you another example. Here at Tech Farms, when coronavirus, you know, really took a major toll back in March of 2020, the owner of Tech Farms said that they were going to shut down except for the Chaos Audio crew. We were allowed to stay here. So we had an entire month of this incubator to ourselves where we essentially lived here. I mean, we were literally sleeping here for a month because everything was shut down. We would work out here, right? But that was really the time that we got the most done. I mean, that's when we figured out exactly what electronics platform we wanted to use. That's when we designed our first printed circuit board and had that assembled and tested. So it was actually, the silver lining was that it did help tremendously in regards to getting this up and running.
Yeah, and I gotta give credit to JC Curley from Gibson for talking about that. So maybe I should brought that up, that he's the one who keeps talking about that we got about in the last year, we've gotten more players in the last 15 years. So in fact, there's some coverage of that in the August issue of the Music and Sound Retailer. Everyone could check that out. But thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I want to take a little more of a macro view. First, I guess it's hard to say, but I mean, you're kind of the next generation in our industry. Have you thought about that? And you think about any, is that a stress point for you, an enjoyment point for you? I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, you are. You're 21, so yeah, you got a long road ahead of you. So you think about that sometimes?
I would say it's positive stress. It's good stress in regards to the fact that it is really hard to try and do something different successfully, right? We're changing a lot of things about this, right? Like, it's an app interface, first of all. Anytime we bring that up, immediately people are like, how's that going to work, right? Because, typically when you think of something like an app connected multi-effects pedal, let's be real, Zoom and Digitech tried that about 6 years ago, right? Like around the time of the iPhone 4, the iPhone 4S, and they discontinued it. Now, it's interesting because you might look at that and think, okay, well, that's because it wasn't successful. People didn't like the idea of using the app, but it was an entirely different experience. Really, the app was used for downloading effects onto the pedal from a store, and that was it. You couldn't use the app to interact with your effects chain or to call it presets or to connect to other controllers in the future. And but it's interesting when you get to talk to somebody like the brand manager of Digitech for 4 years. We talked with him very briefly, but he brought up the fact that when they tried it, the technology wasn't where it needed to be at to do it successfully. But he told us he thinks that we're in a good spot now in regards to where the technology is at, because you have things like Bluetooth 5 low energy, where you can transmit huge levels of data over that connection rapidly, without having to do anything fancy with different platforms, with different smart devices and laptops, right? And then you have things like processors that are insanely powerful as compared to them being 6 years ago, and they're capable of doing these 5 effect chains without really breaking a sweat, in addition to all these other things. So it's interesting, and we're definitely going to have to continue to get feedback from these industry professionals and the people that have been in the market forever, because they're the ones that created fantastic music, great artists, and we have to make sure that we're building something that not only matches something that they would like to use, but allows new people to get into this space just as easily and begin exploring their creativity and their sound.
Okay, great. Finally, I just wanted to ask you great information there about your goals moving forward, looking to the future. What are your plans right now? What do you want to accomplish the most?
So right now, to give you just a little bit of insight, we're working on our Bluetooth connection because we have to make sure that that's bulletproof. If that's the way that the phone is going to be able to download effects to the pedal, download software updates to the pedal to add new features, it has to be solid, it has to be bulletproof, and people can't have problems with it. So that's our primary goal, is making sure that that is 100% tested and 100% verified in any situation. And then moving forward, a larger goal is to kind of increase, and obviously we want to scale up and begin producing larger batches of the pedal, because that's really the only way we're going to succeed and be able to scale, is if we can get the cost of manufacturing down through increased volume orders. From that point, we want to continue to work on new effects. We have a couple of manufacturers lined up of existing effects to create some emulations, and a couple of artists lined up to make some artist series effects. So we want to constantly expand this platform and get it loaded with effects for people to play with, really high quality effects. And then from there, we want to do really interesting things like, coming up with new ways to interact with your effects chain, maybe controlling each effect individually so you can use it at home or on live gigs at bars and restaurants as a pedal board replacement, as a really portable pedal board replacement. So that's really what we're focused on right now, and midterm, I would say, in the future.
Okay, great. We look forward to continued success. Hope to see you again at the Winter NAMM show. Which will be a
we
little
definitely
bigger
want to
event
go.
for you guys. but yeah, thank you for everything. Is there anything you want to add? I just want to leave it open to you. Is there any other topic you want to bring up or anything you want to mention?
Well, of course I have to plug. We're live on Indiegogo In Demand. So Kickstarter is over, but we're going to continue taking pre-orders through Indiegogo In Demand. So you can go to Indiegogo.com and search for Stratus, the super smart stomp box. And other than that, I just really appreciate you having me on, Brian. It's very fun to get to have these conversations, because typically we're kind of just our heads down in the computer trying to figure stuff out. But yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It is great to meet you, and it's more fun. One thing that's come out of the pandemic is even though people have gotten to hate Zooms, it is more fun and enjoyable than actually just talking to someone on a phone. Because then I can't really see you. I can't really interact with you the same way. So that is a positive. I know people have a lot of fatigue from it, but it is still a better way, I think, than talking to someone on the phone for the first time. So so that's cool. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Look, good luck. Best of luck with you, everything. And yeah, this is thanks, Landon from KS Audio, a new up and coming company in the MI industry. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.